Mikel Brown Jr. could be a trendsetter for the Louisville men's basketball program.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Card Nation, what's going on, everyone? Welcome into this Tuesday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. This is my fifth year covering the University of Louisville, third year hosting this show, and I want to take the time to personally thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, Locked On Louisville free and available on all streaming services 5 days a week, your team every day. Today's episode of the show is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. All you have to do, visit FanDuel.com to get started. We have another weekly mailbag episode today. 7 questions that you all have asked that I will attempt to answer to the best of my abilities. 5 men's basketball questions, 1 football question, and 1 baseball question on the docket for discussion on this Tuesday edition of the show. We begin on the men's basketball side. The first question is, how important / critical is it for the Louisville men's basketball program's recruiting that Mikel Brown Jr. has significant personal success in the 2025-26 season? I think it is very important because Mikel Brown Jr. has the potential to be a trendsetter for the Louisville men's basketball program. And this is no disrespect to Chucky Hepburn. He was fantastic this past season. One of the best point guards in the country, one of the best point guard seasons in program history. He will forever be a Cardinal favorite. But he was a senior. And when you go into these recruiting meetings, if there's an opportunity to be able to boast about how you helped a true freshman point guard have a significant season or have significant success in his freshman season, I think it's going to resonate more with recruits versus pitching we helped the senior take his game to the next level and have a great season. Of course, both of those are important. In a perfect world, you have both things to brag about, and hopefully that's the case here in about 12 months. However, if you're picking either or, what's going to resonate more with the high school recruit is helping the freshman achieve immediate success. And that's what's on the table here for Mikel Brown Jr. because for the most part, over the past decade, the true freshmen that have come into Louisville, those 5-star level players, they really haven't panned out. And if they did end up panning out, it wasn't immediately. Like, Louisville hasn't been a one-and-done factory to where they have a ton of guys in the NBA. And it's great that they have Donovan Mitchell, but it would be even better if they had more Donovan Mitchell-type influencers. Now, only so many Donovan Mitchells in the world, but what I mean is having more ambassadors in the NBA is going to do wonders for Louisville's recruiting and also for Louisville's public image, the brand perception, and much more. So if Mikel Brown Jr. goes out and has a really good season to where, he puts his full skill set on display, he plays loose, he plays free, he's able to look comfortable in Pat Kelsey's offense, leading the charge, and success comes along with that. I mean, I think that is a huge advantage. It's a huge selling point because over the past decade or so, that has been something that has hurt Louisville. Teams have basically gone out and said, yeah, look, you're playing for a great coach, but the Cardinals haven't had a history of turning out, one and dones to the NBA. I mean, it doesn't seem like, the freshman impact is as important as it was 10 years ago. You look at the Final Four teams this year and the makeups of those teams, and a lot of it is veteran leadership. Multiple year guys, transfers, you name it, but don't make a mistake here. 5-star level talent is still huge. And even if there's not a ton of team success, it can at least grow the brand. But grand scheme, team success is what is the most important thing. I would go a little bit of a step further here and suggest that Mikel Brown Jr.'s draft result would also be in question here. Like, if he has a great season, but he doesn't get drafted that high, or he ends up coming back, I think that the recruiting impact might take a hit here, and you might take that trade-off just because you get another year of Mikel Brown Jr. But I think a really good scenario here for Louisville is that he has a great season, the Cardinals have a ton of success, and he is a lottery pick. If he goes in the lottery, if he goes in the top 10 or even higher, icing on the cake. And I think that that is something where Pat Kelsey can finally say, hey, look, my first full recruiting class, I got the number one point guard to come to Louisville. He had a great season. He got drafted in the lottery, and we're going to establish that pipeline for elite guards to be able to come here. That's why I say Mikel Brown Jr. could be the trendsetter. He could be the guy that puts this all into motion and says, hey, look, it is cool to come to Louisville because you're going to get paid NIL-wise. You're going to play for one of the best college basketball markets in the country. You're going to play in the KFC Yum Center. You're going to have a ton of success, and you're going to be able to achieve your goals and dreams of getting to the NBA, getting drafted high. Yes, getting paid in the college world these days is extremely important. But you know these highly rated guys are still making decisions on, well, who can get me to the draft? Who can get me drafted highly? And I think that Mikel Brown Jr. could be the trendsetter for the Louisville Cardinals. Second question, do you think Kobe Rodgers' game will translate well to the ACC? We had a segment on Kobe Rodgers' development and what we want to see from him next season. I think it was a couple weeks ago. And to sort of summarize that, I do think his game will translate to the ACC, but it feels like you're either on one end of the discussion or the other. Either you believe that he's going to be coming in right away and starting, or you think that he's going to be an end of the rotation bench guard. And I think that the truth lies somewhere in the middle. Like, I appreciate how highly people think of Kobe Rodgers. I think that he's going to surprise some people this season, and he's getting overlooked because of the four guards ahead of him. But because of the four guards ahead of him, I don't think he's going to start. But I also don't think he's going to be a guy that just gets like garbage minutes. Like, I think he will be a key player in the rotation, backup one, a guy that can play off ball. You look at what he did in his only season of D1 ball at the College of Charleston, started 18 of 31 games, played 22 minutes a game, and averaged 9.7 points, 4.6 rebounds, and 2.2 assists. 6'3" senior from Cincinnati brings a level of toughness to the Cardinals rotation, can put the ball on the floor and get to the basket, has also shown the ability to knock down that three-point shot at an effective rate. I won't say this past season, the season before, he shot 45% from three, but it was on extremely, extremely limited sample size. So I think he isn't going to be a player that plays 20 minutes a game because there's only so many guards that can be factored into the equation. Louisville has 5 of them right now, to the point to where you're going to have to play a majority of 3-guard lineups, and that does bode well for Rodgers. But I think he's a reserve guard, a guy that is able to come off the bench and still keep that level of play high because, yes, you have to have a good starting 5, but what separates contenders from pretenders is how quality is your bench. And if you have a guy like Kobe Rodgers coming off your bench who can do all the things that I talked about while being a really good defender and leader in the locker room, and a guy that knows Pat Kelsey's system and terminology, I think it's going to be a really good season for him. Now, people want to bring up his game against Alabama in the NCAA tournament, the game in which he hurt his knee. He had 14 points on 5 of 12 shooting, 2 of 4 from 3, 4 assists, 5 rebounds. I'm not taking away anything that he did in that game against Alabama, but a lot of his points came when the College of Charleston was losing by close to 20 points in the second half. Like, Alabama had taken their foot off the gas a little bit, and that's when he got a lot of his points. So I don't think he is an all ACC level guard like some might suggest. I do think he is being a little bit overlooked because of the guards that you have on the roster right now. But I'm not saying he's a bench warmer either. I think that the truth lies in the middle. He's a reserve guard playing anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes a night. Really good defender, guy that can put the ball on the floor and get downhill, and also be a really good leader in the locker room and on the court. So I think his game will translate, but I don't think that he's going to be a double-digit scorer in the conference either. When we come back, we have some questions about Mouhamed Kamara's role, about Khani Rooths in 2025-26, when everyone's going to be on campus, and much more. We'll discuss and answer those questions when we come back on this Tuesday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. Card Nation, today's episode of the show is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in the full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win large. Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals tonight between the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Minnesota Timberwolves. I have 3 personal recommendations. Of course, do your homework and research, but here's what I'm going to go with here. I'm going with star power. I'm going Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to score 30-plus points, Anthony Edwards to score 25-plus points, and Jalen Williams to record 4-plus assists. I think SGA and Ant are going to battle all night long in this matchup between the heavy hitters, and I think that Jalen Williams is going to benefit from that with 4-plus assists. He averages over 5 assists on the season. So again, do your homework, but that's what I'm going to go with. And if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Card Nation, I want to take the time again to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, the show is free and available on all streaming services 5 days a week. Your team every day. Also want to give a shout out to all of you, all of the everydayers that tune in and everyone that tunes in periodically. We surpassed 4,000 YouTube subscribers on the Locked On Louisville channel last night. I mentioned that we were close and you all blew that out of the water. So the goal is to get to 5,000 by the end of 2025, and I can't be any more grateful for all of your all's support and consistent tuning in. Let's continue on through the mailbag. Thanks for asking these questions. The first one is, do we expect a Traore type role for Mouhamed Kamara, or do you think he develops into a focal point? What are your thoughts surrounding his usage? So, multi-layer question here. I mentioned that I thought that Mouhamed Kamara could play that Abubakar Traore role in 2025-26, a guy that's able to come off the bench, high energy and motor, that is able to be a two-way athletic forward that excels in transition, but also excels as a point of attack defender that can protect the rim at times. And Mouhamed Kamara, I think, can play that role. I think that Traore, him being sidelined by that arm injury early in the season, hindered his season because he wasn't able to experience that same level of growth in the non-conference slate as the other players. So he had to join a new team, try to learn to play with these guys early on, get hurt, have to wait, and then try to continue that development and continuity in late December, early January, heading through the season. He had some solid games, but he also has some games where it looked like indecision kind of hurt him. Averaged 4.6 points, 4.3 rebounds, shooting 53% from the floor, averaged 13.6 minutes per night. So I think that that could be a potential role for him. I'm not sure that Kamara plays 15 minutes a night. I think it's closer to 10 than it would be 15, and maybe it's under 10. He could be a potential redshirt candidate. But in terms of developing into a focal point, the potential is there from an offensive skill set standpoint, but he's still raw as a prospect. His scoring repertoire needs polish. It needs refining. And if he's able to develop that jump shot, then maybe you develop him into a focal point. But if he's not going to be a primary or secondary scoring option, I'm just not sure how you can turn him into a focal point. But that doesn't mean that he can't be a key piece in the rotation. What are your thoughts surrounding his usage this season? Like I mentioned, I think it's going to be somewhat close to 10 minutes per game, depending on how Louisville fills the roster. If you get a commitment from Evangelos Zouguras, if Ali Khalifa ends up getting that eligibility back, then I think it's going to push him lower down the priority list on the rotation. And I think some of it will depend on this next player that we're talking about. Next question, will Khani Rooths see his role grow in 2025-26? And that's where you have some questions about a logjam in the front court, because what did we talk about last segment, and something that we talk about probably way too much? The Cardinals are going to run the majority of their rotations and lineups with 3 guards. They've got Mikel Brown Jr., Isaac McNeely, Ryan Conwell, Adrian Woolley, and Kobe Rodgers. You're going to run 3 guards the majority of the time. It's going to bring a ton of shooting, a ton of versatility and ball handling and playmaking. And what that does is, as an effect, you're going to see a logjam in the front court. Like Sananda Frew, Case and Pryor are probably your projected starters at, well, technically the 5 and the 4, respectively. Right now, you don't really have a center outside of Frew. You could play Pryor at the 5 if you need to. If you get a commitment from Evangelos Zouguras, he can play the 4 or the 5. It really just depends on personnel in a positionless basketball world now. But you've got Javon Hadley, who's going to be a key player right off the bench. If you get Khalifa back, he's going to play. And if you, like I said, you bring Zouguras in, you have Camara competing for minutes. So in relation to Khani Rooths, who this past year averaged 13.4 minutes a game, he played in 35 games, averaged 3.3 points, 3.0 rebounds. Shot 39% from the field, 23% from 3, 56% from the free throw line. I know that he kind of got thrown into the fire early on, had to play more than maybe he was expecting to, but the shooting numbers are pretty suboptimal. Will that role grow? I want to say yes. Like, I think he's going to be able to take the next step forward, another year progressing in the college program. I think that he's going to take a step forward, but again, there is a logjam for minutes. So if he sees an increase on minutes, it's not by much. I think that he's a guy that maybe sees 15 minutes a night, depending on how other players play ahead of him, what the injury situations look like, and much more. Now, if he just absolutely explodes some of that potential and is able to take a huge step forward, forcing Pat Kelsey to play him more, well, then we have a different discussion. But until I see that, I just don't really know what to expect in year 2. Like, I know the potential is there, but contextually speaking, with Pryor, Hadley, Camara, Frew, Khalifa, potentially Zouguras, or maybe potentially Khalifa, maybe even someone else, there's a logjam in the front court. When is everyone going to be on campus? Has Sananda Frew signed yet? Sananda has, I don't think, technically signed yet, although I'm not really worried about that. His season is still going on in the international ranks, and he hasn't signed yet, but I'm not worried about that. When is everyone going to be on campus? I'm not sure what the exact report date is. I would imagine it's sometime middle of June, early, middle, late June. I think it's June at some point. Mouhamed Kamara will be joining the program next month. So I imagine that if they're not already on campus, I think June is going to be the time in which the remaining players will make it to campus. That's going to be all of the men's basketball questions. We have a football and a baseball question on the final segment of this weekly mailbag edition of the show. We'll see you right back here in just one moment on this Tuesday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. As I continue to mention, guys, we're getting closer and closer to the end of May, heading into the off-season months for Locked On Louisville, working on some guests for June and July. If you have any mailbag questions for next week, be sure to submit them in the comments below. If you have any segment recommendations, be sure to recommend those as well. But there will only be, after this, there will be 2 episodes for the remainder of this week, and I think we're going to take off Memorial Day next week and have 4 episodes to conclude the month of May, but just a heads up on that. But let's continue in the mailbag. Do we really believe that Miller Moss is going to be the guy to take us to the college football playoff? That is the goal, correct? Yes, that is the goal. Is it the expectation? I guess it depends on who you ask, but that is 100,000% the goal for Louisville this season, is to have a good year and make their first college football playoff appearance. I do believe in Miller Moss. I think that he was sort of the scapegoat at USC. I don't think that the offensive line play was the greatest. I think that Lincoln Riley had some issues, and to sort of save face, and buy himself a little bit more time, he did switch to another quarterback who is really talented, but didn't really take the offense to the next level after the switch. Now, he isn't to go without blame. He did have 9 interceptions, but I think Moss has the talent to lead Brom's offense, and Jeff Brom has shown the ability to tailor his offensive play calling around his QB1, and I think that you're going to have a ton of success for Miller Moss, and I think he's going to be able to win you some games. But I'm not really – well, put it this way. I don't think you're going to be questioning whether Miller Moss gets you there. I think it's about the defense. I think that there are some really important questions about the Cardinals defense. And look, I've had some people ask, why do you keep talking about the defense? You know, don't you think coaches make changes? And my answer is yes, I do. But the end of 2023, there were some issues. In 2024, Ron English had Ashton Gelati. He had Quincy Riley. He had Corey Thornton. He had Jared Dawson, Des Tell, Thor Griffith, MJ Griffin, and many more players on that defense. And they were pedestrian in terms of numbers, in terms of the eye test. Like, Louisville's defense lost them 3 of the 4 games last year. That's the difference between getting you into the playoffs and not. So you're telling me that losing a key nucleus of guys from last year's team, that things are changing. And I'm not saying that they won't. Like, my hope is that Jeff Brom got with Ron English right before the offseason and said, look, man, you're a really good friend of mine. I want to see this thing succeed. But we have to draw a plan out here to make sure that what happened in 2024 doesn't happen in 2025. Jeff Brom was notably with the defense a ton in the spring. He was with them a ton during the spring game. But will things change? Will we see this defense improve? And my hope, my prayer is that the answer is yes, and a resounding yes. But you aren't as talented as you were last year. What have you seen from the defensive play calling that gives you a ton of optimism at this point? Because I'm all ears. I'm looking at this and I'm trying to be as fair as I can. It's just hard to project something that I don't know it's going to happen. Like Miller Moss could look great, like Tyler Shuck did this past year. The running game could look great. You could put up a ton of points. You could have a top 20 offense like last year and still lose 4 games. So I think it's not really so much about Miller Moss. I do believe in Miller. It's more so, do I believe in the defense is going to take us to the CFP? We'll see. Honest expectations for the Louisville baseball team in the postseason. Oh boy. What a roller coaster season it has been. There have been some really high highs, and there have been some equally low lows. The Cardinals have gotten some signature victories. They beat Texas to start the season. They won series against North Carolina. They won series against Florida State. And then they've lost some questionable midweek games to Bellarmine, to Kentucky. They've lost some series due to pitching not being able to get outs from the bullpen, starting pitching not being able to go a good amount of distance into the game, hitting not being able to rise up at certain points. There have been some injuries to the starting 9. The Cardinals just haven't been able to put it together. They're going to probably go into a regional as a 2 seed. 3 weeks ago, they had a potential to be a host, and they've just faltered ever since. They lost all 3 series, and they lost one of the midweek games. They ended up beating Vanderbilt, and they lost one of the midweek games to Bellarmine. So they're probably going to be a 2 seed. My expectation with the talent that they have, with the guys they're getting back from injury, with the teams that they've beaten this year, I'm sorry, with Dan McDonnell at the helm, my expectation is making a super. Like a super regional is the expectation. You've shown you can go on the road to beat top teams. You can beat top teams. You need to go into the regional with the talent that you have on your team and make it to the super. Because if your expectation is not making it to the super regional, how many years are we going to have this expectation of, well, we got to a region? Is that what Louisville baseball has come to now as a program? Just making the regional? No, shouldn't be. Shouldn't be, at least. The Cardinals have missed the tournament more often than not since 2021. 2022, they did make the super regional. But since then, the Cardinals just haven't done anything. This was supposed to be a year. I mean, you beat Texas. You go 2-1 in the Shriners Classic. You're like, okay, here we go. Now, I know that you still had some injuries, but even the guys that played, I mean, the Cardinals just couldn't put it together, whether it was pitching, whether it was the hitting not stepping up to the plate at times. No pun intended there. Well, I guess maybe pun intended. Expectation is that the Louisville baseball team makes it to the Super Regional. And for whatever reason, if they don't face a top 16 national seed in the Super Regional, my expectation is going to be to make the World Series. That's where this program should be. And I'm not going to change that just based upon, well, they haven't made the tournament in a couple of years. Sorry. I understand. But Super Regional is my expectation until something changes. That is going to wrap up this Tuesday weekly mailbag edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. Everyone have a great day. We'll see you right back here very soon. Be sure to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Go Cards.